All right, so you probably saw my video yesterday about this whole shooting thing. What's what? Someone sent me some. If you guys find videos of people, the carnage, you know what I mean? There's got to be carnage on video, not just people running with a guy with an assault rifle, fully automatic, mowing people down, and no one's got any video of people being mowed down. Just people running. Come on, let's be real here. And it may surface, so I have no idea what will happen by the time this video goes live tomorrow morning. Maybe it will surface, and we'll have seen the carnage video and understand this is absolutely a real event and case closed. But anyway, Zero Hitch has an article from Bill Blaine. Speaking of Catalonia, declaring its independence, front page news, gone front page news. There's a shooting in America that's buried now, as I discussed in that video yesterday. Bill Blaine, Catalan separatists made the risk of Spain's wealthiest region decoupling into a high probability event. Submitted by Bill Blaine himself of Mint Partners. Reputations changeable, situations tolerable. Baby, you're adorable, he says. It's the start of the fourth quarter, October, always the most volatile month of the year, and it's started with shock and surprise. Just a few years ago, it would have been inconceivable. Inconceivable. Spain's vibrant democracy might stumble towards the verge of dismemberment. But this morning, Spain bonds under pressure. Anyone who thinks populism is dead is profoundly wrong. If it can happen in Spain, it can happen elsewhere. And again, this shooting happens and takes that off the front page news. Gone. We don't want anybody hearing about Spain and Catalonia. We don't want it. They may do it in the other Eurozone countries. Then what are we going to do? Oh my gosh. Populism's going to rise and we're going to have to, how do we keep what we have? And, well, how about a massive shooting event to take it off the front page news? Just saying. Pretty amazing how this stuff is timed. Don't you agree? That, coincidence. That's all coincidence, of course. No such thing as real stuff. It's all coincidence. But it's just amazing at the timing, is it not? Oh, pure coincidence. That's why it's called a coincidence. If it can happen in Spain, it can happen elsewhere. Big and small political surprises define market. What did happen yesterday? It's about how the story is told. Maybe the Catalans got lucky, or maybe they planned it this way, but whatever. They just pulled off a stunning success in terms of managing the narrative and setting the agenda. The world heard and saw exactly what they wanted us to see. The Spanish government defining democracy by denying people the right to express their desires with violence, guns, and tear gas. The people were completely docile, peaceful, and dealt with the brutality of the police. I've watched the videos. I saw tons of them. In a single day, the rebels made previous legitimate constitutional and political arguments irrelevant. It looks like they drove Madrid into and through the crisis, giving them no options or opportunities for dialogue, forcing them to react, and successfully painting Madrid to the world as the dictatorial baddies. Now, no one is even remotely interested that the economics conclusively demonstrate what a spectacularly bad idea an independent Catalonia will be. The rebels have reset the whole debate in their favor, polarizing domestic and international opinion while seeding their revolution with a couple of million votes. The referendum was always irrelevant, although we'll hear plenty about its legitimacy in the coming days. The only thing the rebels haven't done yet is leave even a very small window open for the Spanish to start negotiations on. It was a textbook media win. It's an issue for markets. Is it? Is it now? Got a shooting on our hands. It's gone. It's back, no longer front page news. It's buried. It's gone. Of course, the markets still have to deal with it. The bonds, everything. The critical thing for markets is the Catalan separatists have turned what was initially a very small likelihood risk of Spain's wealthiest region decoupling into a relatively high probability event. What are the likely implications for the markets? Does a butterfly fluttering its wings in Barcelona cause a cyclone in Milan? Italy remains front and center, our biggest European risk, by the way. And British politicians should be very careful. I'm thinking of you, Bojo. Keep foot out of mouth. Don't rule of the populace. We, Nicola, north of Wall, declaring her solidarity with the oppressed Catalans and announcing another neverendum as Theresa May lurches from one disaster to another. Opportunism and politics go together. Populism gives hope to all kinds of nutters clinging to nonsense hopes, like a former grandee of the Conservative Party declaring it's not too late to undo Brexit and remain in Europe. Meanwhile, Spain is not too far away, unless you're trying to fly there on Monarch or Ryanair. As Monarch goes down the tubes, how does that affect the growing market in aircraft-linked bonds? As readers will be aware, it's a sector we're involved in, and I'll be scribbling up some details later this morning. Let me know if you're interested. I don't think it's a game changer in aircraft values, but identifies a weakness in some airline models. And in the first trading day of October, it's the first trading day of October, I'm sticking with my prediction that long-term, it's an equity positive market, but short-term, complacent markets will get a corrective spanking this month. VIX is too low, complacency is too high. When it corrects, get your buying boots out. Finally, it was an incredibly busy train this morning. In the 10 years since we've bought the house in Hamble, the trains from Southampton to London have been getting busier every year despite rising ticket prices, patchy service, and overcrowding. What does it mean? Is it because the economy is heating up, or that more and more folk working in London can't afford to live there and they have to take a train? I suspect the latter, he says. Sadly, the crowded trains bring out the worst in people, like the Pratt who barged his way in front of the queue of people politely waiting their turn to get on the packed train this morning. Well-spoken chap, but not an ounce of remorse about his actions. Sat down, put on headphones, and pointedly ignored everyone fuming at him. He was bald, wearing a blue rab jacket, chinos, and brown brogues. Complete and utter bottom, he says. So yeah, Spain, they pretty much declared independence. Can't wait to see how this goes. You know, Catalan, Spain. Well, we don't find anything you did legitimate or legal, so it doesn't matter. But it matters to them. They held the referendum, and I think it did matter to you, or else you wouldn't have sent 25,000 police forces down there to squash people using democracy to vote. All you had to do, I already said this before, all Spain had to do was say, we declare that referendum null and void. Vote. Do what you're going to do. It doesn't matter. Instead, they started locking out financial accounts, bank accounts. They sent the police in to remove the voting machines, the ballots, and they got pretty violent with the people, as I've seen numerous videos, by the way. And there's some where the people, are throwing rocks and things back at the police, but there's plenty where they're just sitting down in the polling station, waiting their turn. The police come in, they smash the windows and doors open and come in and are grabbing people violently and throwing them out. And I've seen plenty of that. All Spain had to do is say, look, do whatever the hell you want, fine. It's null and void anyways. You don't have the right to do that, and that's it. And dealt with it that way. But this shows you there's no such thing as democracy. There's only the illusion of democracy. This is what democracy looks like. Show us what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. No, I think what the people of Catalonia did is what democracy looks like. Not you standing there shouting this nonsense when nothing's happening or getting changed. Spain knows we have a massive debt problem, like the rest of Europe. Catalonia is a cash cow. They don't have hardly any rights with us, as on a governmental level. They wanted some. We told them we'd give them some, which is what I was reading, by the way. And we didn't kind of hold to our end of the bargain at Spain. Catalonia's had enough. We're now going to separate. That's simple. How do you tell millions of people even though it's a few million. How do you tell a few million people what you just did is null and void and we don't accept it? They're going to tell you, okay, you can say that, but we're going to now put up a border wall, possibly, and let you know. You can keep thinking and saying that, but this is our land now. This land is our land. This land's not your land. To the Catalonia island. To the Sea of Japan. Okay, sorry about that. Anyways, this has been predicted in the Webbot reports. This is something also Martin Armstrong has talked about long ago in his models. People in government, the social contract, essentially going south. People trust in government is going south. He said this. I've read some of his articles that even said those words to you guys over the last few years. I know what he's saying is true. I believe in his models because, again, it's pretty amazing. But I also understand what the Webbot says too. It talked about this stuff coming, death of the dollar, separatist movement, secession across the planet, the social contract being, on strings, so to speak. And it's happening. It is happening. And it just happened with Catalonia. It's that simple. And you think that people, well, we just did that vote and dealt with the police from Spain for nothing. We'll go ahead and just reverse what we did. They said, Spain said we can't do this. So we just did an exercise in futility. Sorry about wasting y'all's time. Oh, we're going to have to clean up all this mess that they made and pay for it too. They did it for a reason. We want to be our own country. And how do you stop somebody when they have millions of human beings who live there saying, yeah, we want this too? Hint, you don't and you can't. Does Spain have a multiple million man army that they can just tap to go over there? Absolutely not. Not even kind of. Do we in the United States have a multi-million, a million or two people in the armed forces? No, we have hundreds of thousands, and I think it's only, I don't know the exact numbers. Just out of curiosity, I'd like to know. How many people armed forces count in the U.S.? The projected active duty and strength in the armed forces for fiscal year 2017 was 1.2 million people, with an additional 1,200 people in the 7 reserve components. Well, what are all the prices? I don't think we have that many people in our military. I think there's no way. I know it's hundreds of thousands, when they send the troops in and whatnot. But this is probably support position, someone sitting at a desk, you know what I mean? In other words, you need men, boots on the ground. What kind of army could even the United States send in boots on the ground into an area where there's 2, 3, 4, 5 million people that have just declared we don't want to be part of this anymore? How do you deal with 2, 3, 4, 5 million people that say, we've asked for this change, we've asked for you to stop, being corrupt, we've asked for you to stop spending a massive amount of our money, taxing the living crap out of us, we've had enough, you said you'd work on it, you didn't, we're leaving, creating our own little area, right? How do you stop that? You send in the jackboots, that's how. But when there's that many people, you're going to have no choice but to negotiate. And the negotiate's pretty much, well, we don't want to be a part of you anymore. We gave you the chance. You said you were going to work with us. You did nothing you said you were going to do. Okay, thanks. We're out. We can handle this now. Take care. That's how it's going to go. And I think of all, like even someone like what John Teeter said at one point. Remember, the time traveler dude? I think it was him, right? America would break up into 5 different zones, so to speak. Almost like 5 different country kind of a thing, but not really countries, different zones. One would be economic, one would be military, one would be this, one would be that. And there would be some major border changes, things like that would be taking place. So you can kind of see, again, if what he says is true, that's where we're headed. You got to understand something. Democracy, hang on, I'll give it to you word for word. Cycles of government. One of my favorite things to ever read. Kyklos, from the ancient Greek, cycle, is a term used by some classical Greek authors to describe what they saw as the political cycle of governments in a society. It was roughly based on the history of Greek city-states in that same period. The concept of the kyklos, or cycles, is first elaborated in Plato's Republic, chapters 8 and 9, it looks like. Polybius called it the anaklykosis, or anacyclosis. According to Polybius, who has the most fully developed version of the cycle, it rotates through the three basic forms of government: democracy, aristocracy, and monarchy, and the three degenerate forms of each of these governments. Tell me if any of this sounds familiar. Ochlocracy, oligarchy, and tyranny. Originally, society is in ochlocracy, but the strongest figure emerges and sets up a monarchy. The monarch's descendants, who, because of their family's power, lack virtue, become despots, and the monarchy degenerates into a tyranny. Because of the excesses of the ruler, the tyranny is overthrown by the leading citizens of the state who set up an aristocracy. They, too, quickly forget about virtue, and the state becomes an oligarchy. These oligarchs are overthrown by the people who set up a democracy. Democracy soon becomes corrupt and degenerates into ochlocracy, beginning the cycle anew. Plato and Aristotle have somewhat different beliefs. Plato only sees 5 forms of government. Aristotle believes the cycle begins with monarchy and ends in anarchy, but that it does not start anew. He also refers to democracy as the degenerate form of rule by the many, and calls the virtuous form politia, which is often translated as constitutional democracy. Cicero describes anaklykosis in his philosophical work De Republica. Machiavelli, during the Renaissance, appears to have adopted Polybius' version of the cycle. His adoption can be seen in Book 1, Chapter 2 of Discourses on Livy. All the philosophers believed that this cycling was harmful. The transitions would often be accompanied by violence and turmoil. See what just happened in Catalonia. And a good part of the cycle would be spent with the degenerate forms of government. See democracy. Aristotle gave a number of options as to how the cycle could be halted or slowed. And he says, even the most, tell me if this reminds you of anything being picked away at called your Constitution in America. Tell me if this first line reminds you of anything that has happened and is continuing to happen with your Constitution. Even the most minor changes to basic laws and constitutions must be opposed, because over time, the small changes will add up to a complete transformation. These people pegged this how many hundreds of years ago? Thousands? Mainly hundreds, right? Are we seeing that with our country? Patriot Act, this act. Well, that just says other reason the government feels necessary. What does other mean? Don't you have to be specific when you write a law like this, or this, you do this? You know, you couldn't tell someone you can be pulled over for doing other things on the road. Then the cop can pick and choose anything he wants. Anything he wants. To pull you over. Right? Which is why we can't allow any subtle changes. In Aristotle, Patriot Act, anybody? And National Defense Authorization Act of 2013, 14, 15, and some other ones. In aristocracies and democracies, the tenure of rulers must be kept very short to prevent them from becoming despots. Now, John Teeter, the president of each of these regions, 5 regions he mentioned, right? 4 or 5, I think it was 5. They're voted in and out. I think he said every year. You're in here for 1 year and you're gone. That's interesting. External, here's one. Speaking of the Patriot Act, 9/11, some of the hoax shootings and things. External threats, real or imagined, preserve internal peace. So we need real or imagined threats constantly, right? He's saying we don't. The three government basic systems can be blended into one, taking the best elements of each. If any one individual gains too much power, be it political, monetary, or military, he should be banished from the police or polls. So let's see. Is there anybody out there that has extreme political power? Yeah, there's a few. Yeah. Anybody, not just in politics, have an immense amount of wealth? The 1%. Okay. And it's them who's writing all the laws for us, for our politicians, and paying them, of course, to pass the laws. Their laws and their tax breaks and their ways around things that you and I can't. One of the other things he says, the middle class, it is critical. The middle class must be large, he says. You have to have a large middle class. And that's funny because the United States used to have a large middle class. Notice how I just said you used to. And it's getting worse. It's going down. Most important to Aristotle in preserving a constitution is education. This is one of my favorite parts. Ready? If all the citizens are aware of law, history, and the Constitution, they will endeavor to maintain a good government. But if we are ignorant of the law, of history, and of the Constitution, we get what we effing deserve. And by the way, we're there. The Congress you have, the Supreme Court, the federal judges handpicked by the president. We don't know our law. We don't know our history. We know nothing. They don't even hardly teach it in schools anymore. Certainly don't teach you about the Constitution or law. A little bit of history, but it's handpicked history that they teach you in school. Not the history that he's referring to here. Polybius, by contrast, focuses on the idea of a mixed government, the idea that the ideal government is one that blends elements of monarchy, aristocracy, and democracy. Aristotle mentions that this notion, but pays little attention to it. To Polybius, it is the most important, and he saw the Roman Republic as the embodiment of this mixed constitution, and that this explained its stability. And having said that, Rome was quite stable for a long time. You would, I'm sure you would agree you have no choice because you can look at how long it was around. But it too failed for the same reasons we're failing today in America. Pension system, debt, massive debt, watering down the money that they had to do. Expanding, we got to expand and take riches because we can't pay for this, which then put more burden on it, right? I mean, you could go down similarities between the United States and Roman Empire, and you will actually be pretty shocked if you take a look at that. It's pretty much a spitting image, except this time in the future. A little more, advanced technology now. Nothing else. Same crap system, same debt, same bull crap that they dealt with, same pensions that have never and can never be funded properly. They had the same thing put in 20 years. We think we discovered the pension system like this day and age, something new. 1900 and something, we're going to put a pension system out there. No. 2,000 years ago, the Romans had it, and it failed massively. And they ended up voting the quote-unquote Roman police, which wasn't exactly the police, the guard, voted for whoever promised them their pension and everything else. Whoever promises us the most is who we'll vote for. That's how society became at the end of Rome. Again, with the Democrats and the promises of everything. Are we kind of, on that path or heading to the path? No, we're absolutely on it, and we've already begun. Give everything away. We give away participation trophies now. We don't even want people earning the win in sports, kids and all. Nope, you get a participation trophy. No, thanks for doing your best, even though your best sucked. Oh well, I guess I don't have to try as hard. I still got a trophy, right? There's no drive to do better. Anyways, take care.